Hey, what's up, y'all? We are back. Today is Wednesday, and I'm going to call this day Wire Wednesdays, as it is to my series, Storytime with Akio Evans. I want to just get on here to talk about my encounters and my inspiration and stories just tied to the Wire universe, and its impact that it had on me. I don't know if, you know, um, anybody who's watching if they haven't seen The Wire, but The Wire was one of the greatest television shows that has been produced. Me, personally, I watched a little bit of The Wire as I had shared with you guys on a previous video. Um, I was on a run, so I really didn't keep up with The Wire as much. When I left Baltimore, I want to say in 2004, The Wire was just being shot. So, um, yeah, I had my encounters though with the real actors, and not only the real actors that played in The Wire, but also the real characters that The Wire had portrayed. One of the uh, real actors that I had an opportunity to connect with was Snoop Pearson. Snoop Pearson, she played herself on The Wire. She was a hitman for Marlowe, her and Chris Partlow, and she had a rough upbringing. But her and I were both from East Baltimore, and Baltimore is small, so it was only a matter of time me and Snoop would connect. I remember being over the West Coast because I had my charges, and I was always getting sent, emails or messages, or my mother would call me. She was like, "Yo, something happening here. The wire is being shot. You missing it? You need to come back home to try to get on the wire." And I didn't do that till I want to say like 2007. Yeah, around 2007, 2008, I was home, and I didn't go anywhere. And that's when I was able to, take care of my charges. Um, I when I was on set, when I first was on set of The Wire, I applied. I applied on Craigslist to get on The Wire because my mother, she kept saying, "Yo, you gotta get on The Wire. You gotta try to get on The Wire." And I remember my first interaction before I got on set of The Wire. Let's rewind back a little bit. My first interaction before I got on set of The Wire, I remember I used to sell my T-shirts at Lexington Market, and I used to, film. I used to carry my Sony High Cam with me, High 8, and after a long day at Lexington Market of me filming and me attempting to sell my T-shirts out of my bag, I would head home. Sometimes I would walk from Lexington Market all the way to East Baltimore, and this day I walked from Lexington Market to East Baltimore. I was on Biddle and Broadway, and I seen this guy coming out the alley, and he had a bulletproof vest on, a long trench coat, a fake prop shotgun, had a do rag, and you probably already know who it was for any of the fans that watched The Wire. But at the time, I didn't watch The Wire, so I didn't know who he was. But it was Michael K. Williams, aka Omar Little, and he approached me, um, and he was just like, I was walking by because I was trying to, back in the day, you could either get an all day pass or you can, cut it short by walking a few blocks and you can just spend half to just go where you're going. And that's what I was doing. So when I got to my destination near Biddle and Broadway, where I met Omar coming out of an alley wearing the whole get up, he seen me. He wanted, um, he was like, "Yo, hey, yo, I like those shoes." And I was so arrogant back in the day. I ain't paying no mind. I looked at him and I just kept moving because I was trying to catch the bus. And this was like in 2006. He was like, hey, yo, I like those shoes, yo." So I was like, all right, let me just shut this guy up real fast. I pull out my back pocket, my Polaroids, and as I'm walking towards him, he's like, "Hey, yo, where you get those from?" He said, "Oh man, those are dead presidents. Yo, dead presidents Air Force Ones." I had the dead presidents Air Force Ones. They were decked out. I had the jeans. I had put the images from the movie on the jeans as well as money, and some of the bills had like the graphics of fire of the bills, $100 bills on fire. And I had a Dear President's Dickie shirt, but I wore that over top of a hoodie. And I had on my Boston Bee hat because in Arizona they didn't sell Baltimore Orioles hats at the time. Nobody even knew what Baltimore was when I was out there in Phoenix, Arizona. So I had to settle for a Boston hat. And I had my rose gold fronts in my mouth, and I had a bandana that was tied around my neck. It was a money bandana, but I put the dead president's image of Lawrence Tate and an actress aiming the pistol, aiming the pistols. And so I was dead president's out, right? And he was just like, yo, and I showed him my Polaroids. I handed him a whole stack of Polaroids. This is before Instagram. MySpace, I think, was out at this time, but I was still interacting, showing people my portfolio. And this was before I put those same Polaroids that I handed him into a loose leaf notebook. So that way it was like somebody had suggested, like, yo, you need to put that joint in plastic. So he's looking at the photos, swiping them through. He sees these Chucky Air Force Ones that I made. He said, hey, yo, I can't wear those, yo. I'm too old for Chucky. And then he started seeing the Scarface Air Force Ones that I made. He said, yo, I seen enough. He said, yo, let me get your number. So I gave him my number. And it was at the time it was 602-410-8881. So then he said, okay, 410. I said, no. It's 602, which is an Arizona area code. And I gave him the whole number. He said, all right, y'all, I'm gonna give you a call. I gotta get something made, man. You know what I mean? I'm gonna try to get you on set and everything. I said, okay, cool. And then right when he said that, I see my bus I was trying to catch, seen it going down the street. So I was like, man. So then I try to play it off because here it is. You know, he was calling me an artist and all these other things. So I was too embarrassed for me to just be hopping on the bus. I had a lot of pride then. So I walked a couple of more blocks up and then I caught the bus at Federal and Patterson. Federal? No. I caught the bus at Patterson Park and Patterson Park. And what's that? Jeez. I'm explaining this like you guys gonna know what I'm talking about. But I caught it's a crossways. I'm missing it's missing me right now. What street this was. But geez, yo, crazy man. But anyway, caught the bus, went home, and I shared my mother's story the next day. And she was like, wait a minute, what? You met Omar? And I was like, yeah. I said, who's that? She's like, Keo. He's one of my favorite actors. Oh my gosh. So you gave me your number, right? I said, yeah, I gave my cell phone number. She said, why don't you just give him the house phone? I said, exactly. I'm not giving him the house phone because, I had too much pride. How about a day or two later, y'all? My phone that I gave him, the phone number I gave him, I couldn't pay my bills. So it was out of service. So from that point on, I don't know if he called me. I don't know if, things, took a shift, took a change. And this is right before I had my sister, my twin sister, she wanted some Adidas with Snoop on. No, that was a year later. My sister wanted some Adidas with Snoop on the Adidas. And I remember taking the picture, and that's when MySpace was popping. This is like a while after my interaction with Michael K. Williams. And I remember posting a picture. And when I posted a picture, it got the attention of Snoop's cousin online. And she followed me, is what you would say now. She followed me on MySpace and she was like, yo, she was a friend of mine on MySpace. She was like, yo, Snoop's my cousin? She said, yeah, I'm going to share this to the manager and I had the manager reach out to you. I was like, all right, whatever. Sure enough, the manager reached out to me. She was like, hey, look, I want you to do something with Snoop Pearson because it was a Snoop first year. She's been on the wire, but this is her very first year being able to be seen on the wire. And she was like, hey, look, I want you to make something for her for All-Star Weekend. So I made something for her and, shipped it out to her for All-Star Weekend. I didn't really get any much materials, but then fast forward was in uh, Spokane again. But when I finally came back home permanently, it was the summer and almost close to the ending of summer. And I remember seeing an ad on Craigslist for people to, get on the wire. So I applied, I got it, went straight down there, and I was on set of the scene where uh, Michael pulled up and pretty much, I'm sorry, Snoop pulled up and asked Michael to go with her. And this is around the same time that Michael had executed Snoop. But in the scene, it was my first time being able to kind of connect with Snoop after she got her, role in the wire. And she, when she met me, when she seen me, she was like, it was like we knew each other. You know what I mean? The vibe was there. The whole cast and crew, they were looking at us, and she was like, "Yo, pull out your book. Yo, show these people what you do." So, because she already had a few of my pieces since then at that time, and that's what I was on set. I met Wyatt Belton, the hairstylist, that did stuff for The Wire. There's a Washington, uh, Anthony Hopkins, the one that plays Hannibal, and I met this guy named Palu, and Paley was the one who had connected me and introduced me to DeAndre McCullough. So, with that being said, man, like, building these connections with the actors, and eventually years later, me filming Safe Streets and Safe Streets East, eventually meeting Dante Barksdale. His um, uncle was Nathan Avon Bodie Barksdale. The Wire made him into two different people. But I've been able to meet, even connect with Donnie Andrews, who was the real Omar Little, and Fran Boyd. Um, and then over time, from that point on, I was able to connect with Snoop, not only just with making clothes, but also doing film. And Wyatt Belton, he was the one, when I stayed in contact with him after that day on set, he was the one that was like, yo, a lot of people on set, because I started making clothing for people to wear on set. And you can say that was my early days of making rap gifts. So when David Simon got whiff of what I was doing, and this was, I think, the last season of The Wire, he was just like, yo, I need a shirt. Why everybody got a shirt? I don't have a shirt. So I decided to make the corner, because he created the corner with my friend DeAndre McCullough. And on the back, I put the corners poster inside the letters. And this is before a lot of people were doing it. I did this on PowerPoint. At that time, you didn't see a lot. No, you didn't see any images inside the letters. I'm not saying I was the first one that did it, but um, and I also did a shirt like that where I made the Wire version, and I incorporated a design inside the letters. And I remember finally meeting David Simon, and David, Wyatt Belt was like, "Yo, this is Dave. This is Keo. He's the artist who's been making the shirts that all the cast members has been wearing on set." And David was like, "Man, it's nice to meet you, man. Hey, how much for the shirts?" And it was only two shirts, the corner and the Wire. And I was like, "Nah, yo, they're yours." You know what I'm saying? He was like, "Nah, man. So if you was to sell these on the streets, how much would you sell them for?" I said, "Well, I'd be at Lexington Market. I'd be selling shirts for $30 to $40 a piece." He put out $100 bill. He said, "Hey, man, look, this is all the cash I have on me. Is this enough?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "But yo, you mind if we take this picture?" He said, "Yeah, but I'm gonna have to hide the shirts because I gotta get the producer to take the photo, and I don't want her to kind of like give smack on the images or something like that." He said, right? I said, "Okay, cool, whatever." I didn't. It shouldn't have mattered, but I was trying to stay under the radar as much as possible because at the time I didn't even go to court to handle my case yet. I didn't. I was still on a run when I took the picture with David Simon. So we took the picture, and that was that. And I remember a couple of months later, I remember on a bus on the 15 on my way to DeAndre's house, and I remember seeing the shuttle, and it was a promo of the new Wire season, and it had the same type of concept that I designed. That I had like the pictures inside the letters. The fifth season had the newspaper inside the letters of the Wire, and I was just like, "Yo, did I inspire that?" So when I was on my way to DeAndre McCullough house that night anyway, I was talking with him because he had invited me over, and he was like, "Yo, he was always telling me like, if I met you on this when I was had the corner when I had the is what we call the day the big bag." He said, "Yo, we would have been on it, bro. Like I would have got you a store and all that." So then when he called me, he was just like, "Yo, I got us the opportunity to come to the spot." So when I came to the spot, I was like kind of a little heated because I was just like, "Hey, yo, did you see a new promo for the Wire, bro? I feel like that's my design, man. I feel like the inside of the letters." He said, "Yo, if it is, look at it as flattery." Um, and at the time, I really couldn't do much because I was just like, "Yo, I might have inspired that design, but what am I to say? Especially if I still had warrants pending on me, I can't really say much." So, um, and then from that point on, me and DeAndre, we was just chilling, and he was just like, "Yo, this the this the idea that I had," and he threw me a few pounds, you know what I mean? And he said, "This is how we gonna get your store." And I was like, "What?" And at the time, I was just now trying to get my life together of going to court and just turning my life around. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, "Yo, bro, like I'm still like in the mix." You know what I'm saying? I got trying to get my life together with the warrant that outstanding warrant that I had, and it was like but weed, what is weed, right? Yeah, it gave me the opportunity whether I should pitch weed or pills, and I chose weed. You know what I'm saying? So him and I, we would go at the strip. The strip is the block. It's on Baltimore Street. And at the time, Crazy John's, it had like these arcades that were there. And every time we would hit sales, you know what I mean? we would hit sales where it's like a coin slot where people would put 25 cents in to play the arcades. So we would put the bag of weed there inside the slot, and somebody would slide us the cash, and that's how we were serving. And I found it very crazy because when me and DeAndre was out there on the block on Baltimore Street, it's like a block away from the Baltimore police station. Look it up. Look up the strip, look up the block, and you'll see all these strip clubs, but literally like a block down, it's this police station. And him and I was jamming, and jamming meaning like we was making sales. And all I was thinking about was like, yo, this is wild. Here it is. I used to wash the corner, and I'm literally selling with DeAndre McCullough. You know what I'm saying? But um, rest in peace to DeAndre. You know, he had passed away in 2011. He he had died of an overdose, and he was a good friend. It was him and Fran was the reason why I was able to really face my charges. Um, I probably will conclude this into another um, segment because I don't want this to be so long. But I have so many stories as it relates to the real actors and um, the real people of The Wire and The Corner. And I just recently did a piece um, dedicated to Michael K. Williams because when I finally was able to do the piece for Michael K., that's when, and I'll explain that another time, but I recently did a piece called The Promise Kept. He was the one who started, Michael K. Williams, aka Omar, was the one who started telling me to start signing my art pieces. Much thanks to him. He told me this 10 years ago during Artscape in 2015. And here it is, 2025. I just recently did a piece dedicated to him where I paid homage to Fran Boyd, Donnie Andrews, and Michael K. Williams, and Mateo Blue. And I will continue with what inspired those pieces in the next one. But thank you guys for tapping in for this Wednesday, Wire Wednesdays. And I'm looking to bring more, stories with you guys. I thank you. If there's anything that you want me to touch bases on, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Appreciate you guys for rocking out with me. And let's tap in and catch you guys on the next one. All right, peace.